The Godzilla timeline, the definitive edition. The two times I have tried to explain it, I did it terribly. Godzilla is a character created by the amazing Ishiro Honda, produced by the Japanese film studio Toho, known for shit like this at that time. I don't want this intro to be too long, so let's just get on with it, because this might get confusing. Today I obviously want to go over the complete Godzilla timeline with the spin-offs and remakes. I have lost count of the amount of people who come up to me and ask me where to start with Godzilla, because Toho and Hollywood have made this film series look super confusing. This character has gotten many sequels, remakes, and even comics and games. I mean, you start with Godzilla 1954, obviously. So let's start with the films that don't really fit with the timeline. Her first film to break what breaks the continuity is Destroy All Monsters from 1969, a way they tried to end the whole series, but Toho realized they enjoy money too much, so they brought it back, the beloved character a few years later with a lazy robot variant. Yay! Sure, Destroy All Monsters is set in the future, but when we get to that future in release order, you realize it doesn't line up. There's also All Monsters Attack, these fuck-ass films in the 2000s, which are all over the place, and the anime. The whole American remake series that completely miss the political metaphor behind Godzilla and its whole point. There's also Godzilla vs. Hedorah. I mentioned this film last because although the continuity is weird in this film, like it is with Gigan and Megalon, it's a weird, incredibly artsy little film that I highly recommend just checking out anyway. Other than Megalon and Gigan, which I wouldn't touch. Godzilla 1954 is where we start. Words cannot describe how much I love this film, so let's instead move on quickly, so I don't get overwhelmed. Let's just say Godzilla is a mutant little lizard guy who was resurrected dinosaur DNA from the atomic weapons used from the USA, used in Japan during World War II. Godzilla was to show visually the horrors of war in a fictional fantasy way, and it's so incredibly effective. It was so ahead of its time. Sure, King Kong and what's the other one, the Lost World, was out by then, but yeah, Godzilla dies at the end. Womp womp, 5 stars. But then they come back, but as a completely new being in Godzilla Raids Again from 1955. 3.5 stars out of 5, I think. This is when we're introduced to Anguirus, and a whole lot more kaiju in original pieces during that time, like Rodan from 1956 and Mothra from 1961. Godzilla was no longer a hot name. 7 years later, we got a film that I thought was a big mistake on both IP's behalf, but this was the film of all of them, which is like the definitive Godzilla suit in my opinion. Maybe because I have this fuck-ass thing looking at me 24/7. But I'm obviously talking about King Kong vs. Godzilla from 1962. Neither creator of King Kong or Godzilla wanted this to happen, but it was the first Godzilla film in colour, so I guess that's cool. 2 stars. They both fight and tie and roll up into the ocean for the opening of the next film, and King Kong swims off into to his island, hinting it to a sequel. But King Kong never canonically comes back. Technically he does, but I'll get to that. Mothra vs. Godzilla 1964. Godzilla is slowly becoming a hot name again after the wonderful solo Mothra film, in which greedy people argue about a giant egg. Bringing back the anti-capitalism themes, like the original, in which little magical girls, I forgot their names, get kidnapped. They come back for this sort of sequel thing to give us, the viewer, a recap of Mothra 1961. Mothra acts like a guardian for this tribe who worship her. She is summoned to help when things get dire, but hopefully won't be seeing any huge radioactive lizards anytime soon. Oh, for fuck's sake. The egg hatches and it's a lava. Mothra fights Godzilla and wins, which Goji stumbles into the ocean. Honestly, a 4.5 to 5 out of 5 film. I love the tension, I love the suit, I love the action, the characters, and the everything, really. I think this film is very, very impressive. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster from 1965. I actually discovered Godzilla through this film. That's a bit weird, right? It's not that plot relevant to the overall storyline, but here we are introduced to Ghidorah, obviously, a three-headed monster. Ghidorah is a monster from outer space who wreaks havoc on planets, where the annoying miscreant decides to do his thing with Earth as well. But that's where I live. We are also introduced to Rodan, a resurrected dinosaur, who can, relate a lot to Godzilla in a way, who had a solo film back in 1956, which no one watched. This is where Godzilla becomes more of a hero figure for Japan. Godzilla comes back from Mothra's attack in the previous film and beats Ghidorah, the threat in this film. I forgot if I've mentioned this already, but everything past Godzilla Raids Again, the first Godzilla, is a new being. It's not the first Godzilla in the 1954 one. It's a brand new, resurrected mutant lizard thing. A new character of the same name. This is where I consider Godzilla to be a woman, where in the first film, he's considered to be a male, which leads to my headcanon that Goji and Mothra are lesbians. She just needed some of that love from Mothra to change her ways. It seemed to work anyway. 3.5 stars. You don't need to watch The Invasion of Astro Monster, the following film, but this film Goji does her funny little dance, which I love. Nor do you need to watch the next film, Hedorah, Horror from the Deep. These two films practically have little to nothing to do with Godzilla. Hedorah was supposed to be a sequel to King Kong vs. Godzilla, but without Godzilla, in fact. It was supposed to be a Toho King Kong sequel, and it was very, very obvious the script was changed last minute to include Godzilla instead of King Kong. Why does King Kong kidnap a woman? And do they even understand the original 1933 film where King Kong clearly has no attraction to the woman? Toho, I love you, but what the fuck is this? Son of Godzilla, 1967. Yeah, you can watch this one. I don't know why you would wanna. It's boring, it's crap. Godzilla adopts a child, the child is ugly, the child gets horrifically bullied at the end. 1 out of 5 stars. Kumonga came from this film though, which I cannot complain about. And for a little bit of warning, this is the worst the Son of Godzilla series gets. Don't worry guys, there is a sequel. But now that I'm thinking about it, All Monsters Attack, aka Son of Godzilla, the fucking sequel, is all a dream anyway. 0 out of 5, I'm not covering it. Moving on. Gigan and Megalon are next in this storyline, but they're weird. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, 1974. Toho knew Godzilla is dying. He even tried to do the finale, but didn't end up making sense in the long run. So they lazily brought back one of my favourite fictional characters ever, as a robot. This film is bland and boring, and I really dislike the original kaiju added to this film. And it even gets more bland and boring in the sequel, both 2.5 out of 10. That's right, I'm changing it to 10 now, to show my detest for Mechagodzilla. Every time I see the Showa box set, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. But films like this make me realise maybe it's for the best, I can't afford it. Godzilla walks off into the ocean, ready to start a new era, which I'll be covering in my next video.